It's a Monday, and you're standing in your closet staring at a jacket with a logo on the chest so large it might as well be a billboard. You bought it 8 months ago because everyone in your feed was wearing one. You put it back on the hanger, not because you can't afford it anymore. You can, because this morning, for reasons you can't fully explain, you decided you're done buying things that are loud. You'd read something the night before about how old money families, the ones with wealth that survived 4 or 5 generations, almost never look wealthy. No logos, no flexing, cars that are 10 years old and impeccably maintained, houses that would surprise you with how modest the outside looks compared to what's actually in the bank. You put on a plain gray sweater instead, the one without a single visible label, and you drive to work in the same car you've had for 6 years. Nothing about today looks different to anyone watching. That's exactly the point of what you're about to become. Here's the distinction almost nobody explains clearly. New money spends to prove something happened. Old money doesn't need to prove anything, because the money was never the point. The money was always just a tool for something quieter and longer lasting. New money buys the watch the week the bonus clears. Old money already owned a watch, inherited or bought decades ago, and has never once felt the urge to replace it. New money leases the car that signals, "I made it." Old money drives whatever's reliable, because a car has never been where the family's identity lived. This isn't really about money at all. It's about what you're trying to say with it, and to whom. New money is often talking to people who haven't met you yet, trying to close the gap fast. Old money stopped needing to talk to anyone a long time ago, because the people who matter already know exactly who they are. 2 weeks into this experiment, a coworker compliments your watch, the plain one, no branding, the one you almost didn't wear because it felt too ordinary next to the one you used to wear. You say thanks, and change the subject before she can ask the brand. This is harder than it sounds. There's a specific, small itch that comes from wearing something nobody can identify at a glance. No recognition, no assumed status, nothing for a stranger's brain to file you under. You realize uncomfortably how much of your old spending had been aimed at exactly that recognition. The itch fades by week 3. By week 6, you don't notice it at all. What replaces it is something quieter and unexpectedly more satisfying. Things you buy now get chosen for how long they'll last, not how fast they'll be recognized. You buy one good coat instead of 4 trendy ones. It costs more upfront and ends up costing less over 5 years, and nobody has ever once asked you where it's from. Old money families have a rule so old it barely needs saying out loud. Money is never discussed at the table, never mentioned in casual company, and never used as a measuring stick between friends. You test this at a dinner with old friends. Someone brings up a coworker's salary, unprompted, the way these conversations always seem to start. Normally, you'd have an opinion, a comparison, maybe even a humble brag disguised as a complaint. This time, you just let the topic pass without adding to it, and you watch the conversation move on to something else entirely within 30 seconds. It's a small moment, but it changes something about how the evening feels. Nobody left that dinner comparing themselves to anyone else at the table, because nobody offered a number to compare against. Discretion, it turns out, isn't just good manners. It's a kind of protection. For you, and for everyone sitting across from you. Strip away the aesthetic, the tweed, the sailboats, the family crests nobody actually uses anymore. And old money is, underneath all of it, a specific financial philosophy. Preserve the capital first, grow it second, spend from it last, and only carefully. This is the opposite instinct from how most new income gets treated. A raise, for most people, immediately becomes a nicer car payment or a bigger apartment. The money arrives and leaves in roughly the same motion. Old money philosophy treats new income as something to be absorbed into the base, not spent against it. The classic old money guideline is blunt. Spend meaningfully less than you earn, invest the difference without exception, and think in terms of decades, not months. Multi-generational families that actually keep their wealth, and most families lose it by the 3rd generation, a statistic wealth researchers cite constantly, share one habit almost universally. They never treat the current balance as the ceiling of what they can spend. They treat it as the floor of what the next generation inherits. That single mental shift, more than any specific investment strategy, is the real mechanism behind money that survives 100 years instead of 10. Your cousin gets married 3 months into this experiment, and the group chat starts speculating about what people are giving as gifts. Numbers get thrown around, some of them uncomfortably large, clearly meant to be noticed. You could easily outgive everyone in that chat. The old instinct would have loved that. The quiet flex of a gift so generous it becomes the story of the wedding. Instead, you give something thoughtful and completely appropriate, the kind of gift any reasonably comfortable relative might give. And you never mention what it cost to anyone, including your own partner, who only finds out by accident months later. Your cousin never learns what you could have given instead. Nobody at that wedding walks away thinking of you as the generous, rich relative, because you never let that story exist in the first place. That's uncomfortable the first time you do it. By the third wedding, it barely registers as a decision at all. It's simply how you give now. 6 months in, you get promoted, with a raise large enough that the old version of you would have already been shopping for a bigger apartment by lunchtime. Instead, you do something that would have felt genuinely strange to you a year ago. You don't change your lifestyle at all. Same apartment, same car, the entire raise, automatically, on the day it hits, routes into an investment account you don't check more than once a month. Nobody at work notices anything different about you because nothing about you looks different. That absence of change is, itself, the entire strategy. A coworker who got the same promotion leases a new car within 2 weeks. You watch him do it, and you feel something you don't expect. Not judgment, but a kind of quiet relief that you're no longer the person who would have done exactly the same thing. None of this requires inherited wealth. It requires a handful of decisions, repeated until they stop feeling like decisions at all. Spending gets decided before the money arrives, not after. A fixed percentage locked away automatically, so lifestyle can never quietly absorb a raise the way it always used to. Purchases get evaluated on durability, not visibility. One excellent coat instead of 4 forgettable ones. A car kept a decade instead of traded every 3 years. Money conversations get avoided by habit, not effort. No numbers offered, no comparisons invited, no bragging disguised as complaining. And every major purchase gets run through a single, quiet question. Would this still feel like a good decision to the person who inherits what's left of it? A year after that Monday morning in your closet, your bank balance has grown more in 12 months than it did in the 3 years before combined. Not from a bigger salary, but from the simple, boring math of spending meaningfully less than you earn and never interrupting the difference. Nobody at work has ever asked what your watch cost. Nobody at your cousin's wedding remembers your gift as remarkable, which was always the entire point. Your coworker with the new leased car mentioned, quietly, over coffee last week, that the payments are starting to feel tight. You didn't say anything. There was nothing useful to say. The closet still has that old logo jacket hanging in the back, untouched for a year now. You've thought about giving it away. You haven't gotten around to it. And honestly, you're not sure you mind that it's still there. A reminder of exactly what you used to think wealth was supposed to look like. It's Monday again, a year later, and you're standing in the same closet, reaching for the same plain gray sweater without even thinking about it now. There's no logo on it. There never was. Nobody who sees you today will know anything about what's actually sitting in your accounts. And for the first time in your adult life, that fact doesn't bother you at all. It feels, if anything, like the entire point finally landing. You close the closet door and go to work, looking exactly like nothing has changed. Everything has. If this changed how you think about what real wealth is supposed to look like, hit subscribe. This channel breaks down the real psychology of money every week. And drop a comment. Could you actually go a full year without buying a single logo? Because the families who've kept their money for 5 generations already know the answer, and it's never been about the logo at all.